This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Yes! Playoff tickets! Just need to click here and... Wait, what? Fake site? Good thing McAfee threw the red flag. That would have been $400 gone.
McAfee blocks risky sites so you don't pay for seats and other things that don't exist. Plans start at just $39.99 for your first year. That's cheaper than parking on game day. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration. And use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
Welcome to the Chalkboard, my fellow football nerds, for episode number 215 of Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Shane Haff. You can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL, and I'm joined by the best co-host in the game. You have heard him on the Saturday morning spread right here on the Eagles Pinpool Network. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. Mark, dare I ask, how are you doing today?
I am a broken man. Whether that be because of the Eagles, because of whatever. It's a couple bad gambling losses, but really because of Notre Dame. If anybody follows me on Twitter from, I think, Sunday at 12:30 until I think I stopped around the time the Eagles game started, probably sent about 500 tweets and retweeted about 200 things onto my timeline. And I'll be frank, I only lost like 2 or 3 followers. Shout out to my followers for not leaving, because I probably would have. But in honor of Notre Dame's press release opting out of the bowl game, I'd like to say, as a team, we've decided to withdraw my gambling interests from the 2025 bowl game season. We appreciate all the support from my family and my fans, and we're hoping to bring more gambling victories on the college football field to the people next year.
All right. There you have it. Sooner Nation will do their best to knock Alabama out and prove they shouldn't have been in to begin with. But I'll be honest, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that'll be a close one. Yeah, I'll bet on the college football playoff. I'm not betting on the bowl games. I'm taking a stand with my Fighting Irish, and we are trying to take down the meaningless bowl game cycle that college football has ruined anyway. And Notre Dame's putting the final nail in that coffin with me. Not gambling on the Guaranteed Rate Bowl or the Pop-Tart Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl or the Meineke Car Care Bowl.
Maybe we should sponsor a bowl, the Eagles Pinpool Network Bowl, the Chalk Talk Bowl. So, all right, well, let's dive into this week's NFL action. There were a decent amount of blowouts, but also there were some pretty impactful games, and honestly, more impactful in the long haul is some pretty impactful injuries this week. And so we'll get into them, but we're going to throw it all the way back to Thursday Night Football first. Dallas at Detroit, and Detroit wins 44-30. And with that loss, the Cowboys' playoff chances take a huge hit. So they have to win 2 more games than the Eagles over their final 4. And, I mean, their schedule is favorable to win out, but the Eagles will likely get to face Kenny Pickett next week and potentially Marcus Mariota in 2 more of those final 3 games. So, you know, however that ends up playing out, it's a big loss for the Cowboys. And on the Lions side, I wonder if we're seeing Dan Campbell, his lack of 4th down success sway him at this point, because in this game he punted on a 4th and 2 in the second quarter, and then he kicked a field goal on a 4th and 5 at the Dallas 35 in the third quarter. So no 4th down attempts in this game. He's a guy that's always been aggressive, and it has not come up his way this season. I think they're 0 for their last 7 4th downs, or maybe that was just in their 2 losses. Maybe they had a conversion in the win that was in between. I can't remember now, but they were aggressive in other ways. They threw the ball a lot in this game, came out attacking Dallas through the air. Jahmyr Gibbs only had 12 carries in this game for 43 yards, but 3 of the 12 went for touchdowns. He also added 77 receiving yards on 7 receptions, and he's now tied with Barry Sanders for the most touchdowns before his 24th birthday, which isn't until the offseason. So one more touchdown this season for Jahmyr Gibbs will give him that record with 4 games to go. I think it's pretty safe to say he's going to get it.
Yeah, he's the best running back in the sport. The Lions, this was good to see from them after obviously a couple. Well, I guess you have the weird loss to the Eagles. You come back and you have the weird win against the Giants where it takes you to overtime. And then you come back and you lost to Packers. So, yeah, I guess it's fair to say a weird stretch for the Lions, a 1-2 stretch coming in, and to be able to handle business the way they did, I think firmly places them back into the playoff mix. And it's funny, I don't know if I said this on this show last week or if I said it on my show or where I said it. I honestly can't remember. But the Lions in week 18 play the Chicago Bears. The Lions already beat the Chicago Bears. And it's funny to say, and I was saying it last week before the Bears had lost to the Packers. Now it seems even a bit more realistic. When the Bears were 9-3 and the 1 seed in the NFC last week, and that was the story of football, I was kind of sticking my hand up saying, I think they're going to have a play-in game for the 7 seed in week 18 if you look at the schedule. And now you sit here looking at it, I think the Bears are going to be 11-5 after week 17, and they're going to play the 10-6 Lions, and that's going to be a 7 seed bowl in week 18, and the Bears could potentially lose, get to 11-6. And miss the playoffs. I think that's very in the realm of possibility. If you look at San Fran, Seattle, LA, those 3 schedules, I think it's pretty safe to say, especially now, I think Indy might be on 2 of those 3 schedules remaining. It's fair to say that I think all 3 of those teams make the playoffs. If you look, I think all 3 of those teams win 12 plus games, to be honest. So then you look at, it's the 7 seed and it's Detroit and Chicago, and you could pretty easily get left out, especially if Green Bay keeps winning and kind of wraps up the division. So I hate to tell that to Bears fans, but you look at the Lions schedule, they go at Rams. Let's say they lose that one. They're home for the Steelers. Let's say they win that one. And then they're home for the Vikings. Let's say they win that one. So yep. I think they're probably going to go 2-1 in these next 3 games, which puts them at 10-6. So if the Bears want to not be in a winning in, losing out scenario, I think that means that they have to beat, I guess it would have to be, they would have to go 3-0.
Yeah. Who's their schedule?
They have Browns at home, Packers at home, at San Fran, Detroit at home.
Yeah, so they got to win. Essentially, they've got to win 2 of 3 against major contenders to get into the playoff, it looks like. So yeah, that's a brutal schedule.
If we give them the win for Cleveland, it doesn't really matter which 2 of the other 3 games they win, because you'd either be beating Detroit or you'd be beating San Fran. But if you want to not have to worry about week 18 being a play-in game, you're going to have to win the next 3 games. I think no matter what, almost, Chicago is going to be in a situation where they could be out after week 18.
Yeah, that would be a rough end to a really promising season, but we'll get more to the Bears here in a little bit. Let's bounce into, you got something else?
And Dallas, I think, is also going to win out, and I don't think it's going to matter. I think they're going to go 10-6-1, and like we just said, I think the Bears are going to be 11-5, and the Lions are going to be 10-6, so no matter which way that game would break, the Cowboys would be left out. That's pretty funny to say.
Yeah. Okay, into Sunday, Seattle at Atlanta. This game's tied 6-6 at halftime, but Seattle explodes in the second half, outscoring the Falcons 31-3. They win by a score 37-9. And it all started with a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown on the first play out of halftime. And then the Seahawks scored on 5 straight possessions while forcing turnovers on 4 of 5 possessions defensively. Kirk Cousins threw 2 picks. Bijan Robinson fumbled. The Falcons had a field goal blocked. They gave up a kick return. Just nothing is working for the Falcons, who again traded their first-round pick in this upcoming draft, in the last draft. So terrible stuff for the Falcons. Jackson Smith and Jigba caught 2 touchdowns, had 92 yards on 7 receptions, and the Seahawks rolled in this one.
Yeah, I was just checking here what pick the Falcons are giving the Rams. That is the 9th pick right now that the Rams are picking up, which could easily get worse. If you look at teams 4 through 8, they are only a win in front of Atlanta, and I don't expect Atlanta to have many more wins the rest of the way here. So I expect that pick to only get better. Seattle, a couple really weird games in a row here. I don't know what you want to call it. But let's just group these last 4 for Seattle. They go to LA and outplay the Rams in LA. Doesn't matter because Sam Darnold goes full bozo mode and loses you the game. You come home and you play, or actually, I'm sorry, you go on the road and you play Tennessee and you're up pretty comfortably. But even that game is 3-3 after the first quarter. You do get up 16-3 by halftime, and you're up, 30-10 in the late third quarter. But even Tennessee kind of fights back and makes it a little bit of a closer game than it should have been. Then the next week against Minnesota, I know now you look at it and say it's 26-0. That game was 3-0 with 3 minutes left in the second quarter. And then you just mentioned, what was the halftime score here in Seattle, Atlanta?
It was
6-6. So it's like a couple weird starts or weird finishes or Sam Darnold. And I think, honestly, it can just be boiled down to Sam Darnold. If you kind of look at this, I know his stat line actually looked pretty good here. If you look at this game, I kind of walked out of this game thinking that there were some more Darnold decisions that maybe he didn't get punished for. And he did throw one pick, but yeah, I go back and forth on Seattle all the time. I think they have all the makings to be a Super Bowl contender, but Sam Darnold.
I mean, I'm not going to trust Darnold to play well in 3 straight games in the postseason, I think is what it amounts to, but we'll see.
I do think
we'll see.
I think they're going to be the 1 seed.
Yeah, it's very possible. Pittsburgh at Baltimore. This game had massive playoff leverage implications. Pittsburgh comes out on top 27-2. And Aaron Rodgers bounced back in this game. He threw for 284 yards and a touchdown. He also scrambled for a touchdown. He had no run game. 34 rushing yards on 15 carries from running backs. But DK Metcalf had 148 receiving yards. So a good DK Metcalf game. Positive sign for Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers now have a 66% chance to win the division. The Ravens drops down to 33% as Lamar Jackson struggled again. Completes only 54% of his passes. Tosses a pick. He did run better. He had 43 rushing yards and a touchdown. And so that's a positive sign, but you're running out of time to have positive signs because you're in a hole now. The Ravens were only 2 of 6 in the red zone. Isaiah Likely couldn't hold on to a touchdown that would have given Baltimore a late in this one, and just massive playoff leverage swing here for the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, good for Pittsburgh, but to me, this is about Baltimore, and this is about what happens with John Harbaugh and what happens with Lamar. Are we seeing kind of the beginning of the end here in terms of the prime of Lamar Jackson, or maybe the end of the beginning? I don't know which way you want to use that. Or is Lamar just banged up and hurt and playing through an injury, and they're being weird about it and not really commenting on it and putting him on the injury report every week? But this is 5 straight games for Lamar under 60% completion percentage after the first 5 games being 66% or better, 4 of them being 70% or better. And he's taken huge steps in that regard as a passer over the last couple of years. But I can't remember a 4-game stretch. I feel like I've been big on 4-game stretches on this podcast, talking a lot of quartets, I guess. But you look at these last 4-game stretches for Lamar, he's thrown 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions. He's been sacked 12 times in that 4-game stretch. He's thrown for under 200 yards twice. He hasn't completed 20 passes in any of those games. Good for Pittsburgh. You get your trip to the AFC playoffs yet again. This time, at least your fans get to go and see you, lose handily. But hey, good for Pittsburgh. But I really do think that this is about Baltimore and what a disappointment this season has been, and kind of how do they fix this going forward?
Let's keep rolling to Tennessee at Cleveland. So I guess I should say let's roll to Cleveland. Tennessee wins 31-29. And the Titans' run game was great in this one. Tony Pollard rushes for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns on 25 carries. Cam Ward wasn't great. 14 of 28 for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns with a pick, but it was enough. On the Browns side, Shedeur Sanders goes 23 of 42. He throws for 364 yards and 3 touchdowns with an interception. The interception was one of the worst ones you'll ever see. He held the ball forever and then launches it into obvious double coverage. But he had 29 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. Harold Fannin had 114 receiving yards and a touchdown. But Shedeur Sanders I just don't know what to make of him. His time to throw was 3.57 seconds in this game. I mean, that's tremendously long. Over 3 seconds is long, but you can get away with being a deep shot guy with a good offensive line and like the 3.1s, but 3.5 is almost 3.6 is ridiculous. And so there's some positives for him statistically, but I think there's a lot of concerns about how slow everything is for him and just his inability to play on time.
I have a weird question relating to that. Would that impact the run game, you think? Like, would that make Judkins worse? Because if you look at the efficiency on Judkins, it has fallen off a cliff from where it was early in the year. And now it's, these 4-game stretch. No, it's actually like a 6-game stretch. 2.1, 3.4, 3.5. And then when Shedeur was really starting, I guess Shedeur played that Baltimore game, but 2.9, 4.0 this week, 14 carries for 26 yards against Tennessee. But Shane, I guess before I give my take, is there something to that, you think?
You saying that his time to throw impacts the run game?
Yeah, the way that Shedeur handles the pocket and how Shedeur, I guess the way that you're able to attack him as opposed to other quarterbacks, I guess you could argue that maybe you can just totally play the run first because you're going to have all day to rush the passer. There's not going to be much data on that because there's like nobody that ever has had such a long time to throw, honestly. Yeah, I couldn't word that properly. You summed it up there. Yeah, I was wondering if you could almost just shell out to the run and it doesn't matter because he's going to hold the ball so long anyway that you're going to break through. Someone's going to get there even if it's a run rush. But yeah, I did think Shedeur was and I actually think that comment is 100% accurate from Yakko Warner. That Shedeur discourse is hyperbolic on both ends. He's better than the haters claim, but worse than the stands claim. I think that's 100% true. I think that the people who were like, no, he actually should have been a 5th-round pick and shouldn't have went on day 2, and it wasn't about the personnel. He should have been a day 2 pick. Like you look at the quarterbacks that went in round 3, round 4, round 5 ahead of him, and quarterbacks that go on day 2, day 3, early day 3 every year. Shedeur had more upside than those guys. And what I've always said about Shedeur is I didn't think Deion was a good coach. So I thought getting him in an actual NFL system would be interesting. But then the people who thought he should have went number 1 overall, or the people who, think that the Browns offensive coordinator is sabotaging Shedeur so that he wouldn't have had to play him earlier this season. Like, it obviously is insane both ways. But I did think Shedeur looked pretty good in this game for the most part. Obviously held onto the ball too long, and that's always going to be a problem with him. But I did think he looked good. I bet the Browns in this game. Imagine betting on a team that outgains the other team by about 120 yards, outpasses the other team by about 143 net yards. The team you bet against had 11 penalties for 85 yards, and the team you bet against is also the 1-11 Titans, and then the Titans win 31-29. Well, what are the odds? I bet it because I thought these were 2 different levels of bad teams. I thought the Titans were truly, truly one of the worst teams we've seen in recent memory. And I was like, well, the Browns, the defense, Myles Garrett, and Tony Pollard just carved them up.
Yeah. Just for context on the time to throw stuff, 3.57 second time to throw. Only 2 quarterbacks this season are over a 3-second time to throw. It's J.J. McCarthy at, I believe it was 3.07. I'll double check that real quick. Yeah, 3.07, and then Caleb Williams at 3.23. So 0.3 hundredths of a second longer than Caleb Williams, who holds it an inordinately long amount of time. So that's something he's going to have to do. He's going to have to start to play on time better, but I mean, he's a rookie, so maybe he figures that part of it out. That's definitely something that's got to be an emphasis for them moving forward, though. So, all right, let's keep rolling to Jacksonville. Indianapolis at Jacksonville. Jacksonville wins 36-19, but the story of this game is Daniel Jones' injury. So he tears his Achilles, which effectively ends everything for the Colts. I mean, they just signed Phillip Rivers to their practice squad, who, when Adam Schefter reported that, noted that he's a grandfather, which is funny, just a funny way of reporting that. Like, they signed a grandpa to their practice squad now. But he gets this injury while playing with a broken leg on a wet field, which is certainly something that should be talked about a lot. The decision to put him out there I think there's probably a lot of recklessness in that because you're not tied to him after this year anyways. And it's really unfortunate to see it in this way for Daniel Jones. He'll miss the rest of this season. He will have a hard time finding a job next season because he's going to be out all off season and probably into early next year. And now that said, I do think the Colts were trending towards being done regardless. They had lost 3 of their last 4 entering this game. They were down when Daniel Jones got injured, due in part to a pick he threw on the first play of the game. So I never thought this was sustainable, but it's a shame to see that happen. And there's certainly some conversations that should be had about Indianapolis's decision to put him out there. But I thought it was interesting that it was Riley Leonard, not Anthony Richardson, who came off the bench for Jones after that injury. Oh, is Richardson hurt?
Yeah, he in a pre-game workout earlier this year had I don't even know what you call them, like the stretchy workout.
Oh, yeah, the bands,
and it broke his orbital bone. The thing snapped, and
I must have totally missed that.
And it broke his orbital bone. Yeah, it's insane. And it's funny, just like another missed opportunity for Anthony Richardson to try to save his career now. Jones is hurt, but I hope that the Colts don't overreact to the first however many games it was, and I hope that they remember.
They already did because they traded their first round pick for a cornerback and now can't access a quarterback.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And we killed that trade at the time, and I feel even more justified in killing that trade. What a great trade by the Jets. Wow, that's actually going to be like the 14th pick now or something crazy. Maybe better than that, but you look at the 4 games before this Jags game, which you mentioned was already going south for Daniel and the Colts anyway, and they lost 27-20 Steelers Colts, and that was a Daniel Jones kind of bozo performance. I thought that the Colts beat the Falcons in overtime in Berlin in spite of Daniel Jones. I thought that the Colts lost to the Chiefs because of Daniel Jones, and I think that the Colts lost to the Texans last week because of Daniel Jones. And they scored, 20, 16, and 19 points in the last 3 games. So I hope that they don't just look at the fact that he has, he had a good first half of the year. I very much think that he should be moving on. The Colts should be moving on and trying something else next year. I don't know what that is. And the Colts are yet again in the same spot that they've been at quarterback forever, in the middle of the draft with no real avenue to finding one, which is how they ended up with Phillip Rivers in 2020. How they ended up with Phillip Rivers in 2025.
Time is a flat circle.
It really is. That was before our podcast, right? What was 21 the first year?
I think so. No, yes. Yeah, because 20 was the year I started writing every week for the Painted Lines, and 21 is when we started the podcast.
Yeah, because 21 would have been Devontae's rookie year, right?
Yeah.
That would have been our first year. Our first podcast would have probably happened around the time Phillip Rivers retired.
That was the year 1 BC, before Chalk Talk.
Yeah, think about, we've been doing this show for quite some time now, and Phillip Rivers has been retired that long. It's unbelievable. It is. I don't know if I can ever remember.
He's got grandkids.
He was about to be Hall of Fame eligible. I think he was.
Does signing on a practice squad move that back out?
I think.
Okay. I was going to say if he doesn't end up playing.
I think I saw a tweet that now, no matter what, because he filed paperwork and stuff like that, it pushes it another 5 years.
Interesting. All right. Man, I've had one of those workout bands snap on me before, but it just snapped my arm.
Do you think Phil?
I was doing the pull downs and it snapped and curled around my arm and left a big welt around my arm. So I guess it could have been worse. I could have got my orbital bone.
Do you think Phil looked at the Hall of Fame quarterbacks coming up and he's like, hey, I don't know who's even in yet. I don't follow the Hall of Fame like that.
Yeah,
but,
I don't either.
But you think of that era of quarterbacks, and you have Roethlisberger and Eli and Peyton and Brady and Breeze, and I don't know when people retired relative to each other off the top of my head, but it does feel like there's probably a crowded quarterback room in the Hall of Fame, these next couple Hall of Fame voting. So maybe he's like, let's push that another 5 years back. And I don't know if there's quite as many guys on the come up after that.
Yeah, I don't even look at Hall of Fame stuff. I don't even know who was inducted this year.
feels
Hall
like
of Fame's
football.
awful.
Basketball's the worst one because it's actually just everything. It's college, European, NBA. Like it's not even an NBA Hall of Fame. It's also in like a shopping center. There's like a Subway next to it. It's really weird. But baseball's the only sport where like the Hall of Fame is like it feels like an integral part of the news cycle of the season. There was just a big Hall of Fame vote for the Baseball Hall of Fame the other day, and it felt like a big baseball story. Whereas I don't even know when the NFL votes on that, when that news breaks, when they do the induction. I guess it's the Hall of Fame game.
The
right?
Hall of Fame game, yeah.
Every year. Yeah, I guess I knew that. But yeah, the NFL Hall of Fame has no. I've never been there actually either.
Yeah, me neither. All right, let's keep rolling. Let's go to Minnesota, where the Vikings blank the Commanders 31-0, and it's yet another game where we can talk about organizational malpractice when it comes to the health of a player. At 3-9, the Commanders' season was over, and there's just not a reason to rush Jaden Daniels back into the lineup off of that elbow injury. I'm not saying you hold the guy out for the year. And if he's cleared, he's cleared. So, it's tough. It's a tough act to walk. It's a tough balancing act. But to see him re-injure the same elbow that he was fortunate enough not to shatter just a couple of weeks ago in a meaningless game is tough. And it's not a meaningless game for everybody. Guys are playing for jobs. Guys are coaching for jobs. And development's important. But, man, it's especially tough when you think about the RG3 situation with Washington, too. Like the last time they had a promising quarterback, they mismanaged his health and ended his career. And Jaden Daniels has just been injured this year. Zach Ertz also suffered a gruesome knee injury in this game that unfortunately is probably the end of the line for him and his career. It's a terrible way to see him go out, if so. I wouldn't suggest looking up that replay, but it was crazy to me to see that injury when he was in the air. Like his foot wasn't caught on the ground. And I just don't feel like you see that type of an injury very frequently. So really rough day for Washington health-wise. For the Vikings, J.J. McCarthy played well. He goes 16-23 for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was the first 3-touchdown game of his NFL career. He was especially good on quick passes, 10 of 11 for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns, which seemed to be a point of emphasis because his time to throw was 2.56 seconds, which is over a quarter second quicker than what he's had in any other game this season. So they seem to be really trying to lean into that quick rhythm passing for him, simplifying things, and it worked well, at least in this one.
I have no take on this game whatsoever. I nothing to say. Washington, Jaden Daniels playing shows what kind of organization Washington is. And oh my God, a Josh Harris owned team is mishandling the health of their main superstar for weird reasons. I'm shocked as I'm wearing my Joel Embiid, memorial jersey under my hoodie here. That's a joke. But yeah, Josh Harris is an evil man. That's all I have to say about this game. I will say, I forgot to say this about last game. The Jags might win like 12 games. If you go look at the Jags schedule, I don't know what the Jags are, to be quite honest with you. I will say, even regardless of the Daniel Jones injury and a backup quarterback playing, I do think that was we've seen a couple times now where the Jags have kind of just handled business. I guess it's the Titans last week, and then this game, the Titans are horrible. And they also murdered the Chargers 3 weeks ago, and Herbert was banged up in that game. But this is now 3 of the last 4 games that they've really just absolutely, handled a team where that was kind of my complaint a lot of the year. They only beat the Raiders by 1. There was multiple times they played with their food. But you look at the rest of the Jags schedule: Jets at home, at Broncos, tough, at Colts, not as tough now, and then the Titans. So they have 2 easy wins. I think the Colts will be a win again. I think they're like a lock for 12-5. And if you beat Denver, you're talking about a potential 13-win team that could be the 1 or the 2 seed, which is insane to say.
Yeah, especially all the stuff we've been through with the Jags this season, too.
One of the crazier seasons I can remember.
Yeah. All right, let's go to another game with another quarterback injury. Miami at New York Jets. Miami wins 34-10. They scored a touchdown on their first 3 drives and never looked back. Devon Achane did leave with a rib injury, but Jalen Wright rushed for 107 yards and a touchdown in his absence, and suddenly the Dolphins have won 4 straight. They have the same record as the Kansas City Chiefs, which is kind of funny. On the Jets side, Tyrod Taylor went out with an injury, and it was Brady Cook who came in instead of Justin Fields, who was inactive with a knee injury. And Cook went 14 of 20 for 163 yards with 2 picks, and he took 6 sacks. Anything you want to mention on this game?
Yeah, Miami. If the Chargers would have lost last night, I would have said that Miami has a legitimate chance to break their way in to the oh my God, my brain is broken, Shane. I don't know if you knew what I was about to say there, but I was very much about to say that they had a chance to break their way into the college football playoff, and it's 100% because I said Miami, and now my brain is broken. I don't know if I can continue the podcast. Anyway, the Dolphins 34-10. And not much to say on the actual game. I'll say that my dad, I think I referenced this a couple of weeks ago. My dad, when the Dolphins were 3-7, called me and said the Dolphins have a really easy schedule coming up. They're going to be 6-7 and playing Pittsburgh, and maybe they could even win that game, and then maybe they're back in the mix. And I was like, what are you talking about? The Dolphins can't have an easy schedule. They're the easy schedule. And the Dolphins have answered my criticism by winning 3 straight games. This one's the first one that they've won by convincing fashion, but yeah, good for the Dolphins. 4 straight wins, 3 straight since that comment by my dad.
Yeah. Shout out to Papa Henry Jr.
Mr. Henry Sr. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that would be a smarter way to say that. All right. Papa Henry Sr. knows ball. So
yeah, sometimes.
All right, let's keep rolling. New Orleans at Tampa. New Orleans wins 24-20.
Chuck me the money.
Chuck me the money. He had a good day as a runner. Rushed for 2 touchdowns. One was a designed 33-yard touchdown. The other was a scramble where he avoided 3 Bucs defenders in the backfield and then dives for the pylon for the go-ahead touchdown. I will say it was one of the more unathletic dives for a pylon I've ever seen, but he got there, and that's all that matters. It looks good on the box score. He was 13 of 20 for 144 yards as a passer with a pick. Baker Mayfield was 14 of 30 for 122 and a touchdown and a pick. It's his 4th straight game with under 200 passing yards, and it's the Bucs' 4th loss in the last 5 games. I mean, things are just totally off the rails in Tampa at this point.
Baker was awful in this one. I mean, this is all on Baker, and now it's officially just. I mean, the NFC South comes down to a Buccaneers Panthers situation. They play 2 more times the rest of the year, and there's 4 games left. They're tied in the record. Pretty much going to be decided by that series. Yeah, there's someone said, is there a possible world where the Bucs are the 6 or 7 seed and face the Eagles again? Absolutely not, because the 7 seed is going to be at least like 11-6, I think. So they can't even. That's the best they could get to, and if they do go 11-6, that means they would have beaten Carolina, and they would have won the division. So
yeah,
very much the NFC South can only get 1 playoff team in.
Yeah, NFC South and pretty much the NFC East only going to have 1 playoff team. And so they'll be the 3 and the 4 seeds. So they'll play whoever the 5 and the 6 is.
I think I can tell you right now. I think I have a good idea of both. I guess this is a good tangent. I feel like I've went short on a couple games. I think I can tell you the playoffs right now. I think the 1 seed's going to be the Seahawks or the Rams. The 2-7 game is going to be the Packers against the winner of Lions Bears in Week 18. The 3-6 game is going to be the Eagles against the 49ers. And the 4-5 game is going to be the Bucs or the Panthers against whoever doesn't get the 1 seed between the Seahawks and the Rams. I think it'll be Seahawks 1, Rams 5, if I had to guess on how I think that'll shake out.
All right. All right, let's go to, this was probably the best game of the early slate. Cincinnati at Buffalo, wild back and forth game. 34 total points scored in the final 9 minutes of the game. And the decisive sequence was Joe Burrow throwing a pick 6 with a 3-point lead. And so now the Bills are up 4. And then he throws a pick on the very next play. So back-to-back picks on back-to-back plays. And the Bills end up winning this game by 5. Josh Allen went 22 of 28 for 251 and 3 touchdowns. He had 78 rushing yards and a touchdown. And Burrow played well outside of that 2-play sequence. And it's just a brutal 2-play sequence there. And again, as is the theme this week, there's more medical issues in this game. T. Higgins was concussed in week 12 and missed week 13 in the concussion protocol. He was back this week. 2 separate times in this game, his head was slammed to the turf. And both times he was evaluated for a concussion and then cleared. And then Sunday night, he was placed in concussion protocol, reporting symptoms. So, NFL, real big on player safety. At least they're real big on talking about player safety, but it's absurd that he was allowed to go back out there after those. And this game pretty much eliminates the Bengals from playoff contention because they trail the Steelers by 3 games with 4 games left. So they would have to win out and hope the Steelers only win 1 game.
So I think they can get a tiebreaker. I think Pittsburgh would have to lose to Baltimore later on in the season.
Right, but even to get tied, they've got to win out and hope the Steelers lose 3 of 4, right?
Yeah, or 3-1, and yeah, they probably got to win out. I agree.
So yeah, they got to win out and hope for a lot of help. So I don't know. It's probably done.
It's probably done.
I think it's like a 3% chance per the playoff machine right now.
If the Ravens won on Sunday, I'd say it's done. But because it's the Steelers and because I know that they're kind of frauds, this is just, we've already talked about Pittsburgh and Miami. I love Miami on Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh. I think they're a 3.5, 4-point dog. I think they might win that game outright. I feel like it's the perfect. People are finally feeling good about the Steelers again. Tomlin's good when you count him out. Like this week, nobody thought they were going to beat the Ravens. They're a 6-point dog. Like Tomlin and the Steelers are good when they're counted out in that spot. When they have that big win and then they're 3.5-point favorites on Monday Night Football at home, like I feel like that's where the Steelers let down. So, but they could lose that game and still pretty easily win the division. Just a fun aside. This game was awesome. I mean, there was 2 punts in this game. It was just insane. Turnovers, big plays, and then the snow. I know Shane doesn't like the snow in football, but when it works and the teams deal with it enough to have these fun games, it does make it look aesthetically pleasing. Now, when there's games like the Packers 49ers divisional round game is what I always think of when I think of weather. A couple years ago where it was 10-7 and a 14-3 Rodgers team with Green Bay that had been amazing offensively all year couldn't move the ball at all in the wind and in the cold there, and it actually ended up hurting Green Bay even though they were home. Now, I don't love that, and I kind of side with Shane a little bit when we come to those situations. I kind of would like the Eagles to have a retractable roof, yada, yada, yada. But when it works, when it's a fun game out there in the snow, it is like it makes the highlight better.
Yeah, the snow is a cool aesthetic. Like I play with snow on in Madden all the time. I think it looks cool. Give me regular season games in the snow, but in the playoffs.
Okay.
In the playoffs, let's keep it, which is why the NFL does not do Super Bowls in northern stadiums that don't have domes. They know that to be true. But yeah, I think they look really cool.
And one last thing on the game. I know there's no statistical argument for this. Drake May and Matthew Stafford should probably be the 2 MVP favorites. Although I will say it's pretty funny. Patrick Mahomes has like just as many yards as Drake May. And we're talking about how like terrible Mahomes is and how he's washed and how he's not the same guy. And it's all his fault that the Chiefs aren't good. But it's like, and I know he has 10 picks, so it's a little different. Anyway, putting that aside.
That's just people box score watching.
Yeah. No, I know. But you look at Josh Allen, who is a good bit behind May and Stafford in the odds, and again, has the turnovers that they don't have, has a few less touchdowns. There's no one on the planet that can convince me that Matthew Stafford's more valuable to the Rams than Josh Allen is to the Bills, even just this season. Like in the last 13 games, like the Bills would be, I don't even know what the record would be if you put whoever the 18th best quarterback is. If you put Tua on the Bills, what's the Bills record this year?
Like they probably are like, I don't know.
2
and 12, 3 and 11.
Maybe even worse. Yeah. I think they have 5 wins or less for sure. And here they are at 9-4. And I think this week, New England Buffalo, I don't know if the seeding will shape out to be the AFC Championship, But I think these are the two best teams in the AFC, New England and Buffalo, or at least the two teams I buy in on the upside of the most. Maybe that's the fair way to say it. I think whoever wins this game, if it happens in the playoffs, will win the AFC.
Yeah. I don't think MVP should be quarterback who plays well with the crappiest team around him. But
I agree.
It is worth thinking about. To me, like, I think Stafford's been awesome. May would be my vote. If I was casting a ballot, Drake May would be the guy that I give it to. I just think he's been awesome. And again, he's not that it should be a main criteria, but he's doing it with nothing around him.
Yeah, that's why I didn't bring up May in relation to Allen in that conversation, because I think May goes in the same bucket as Allen, where he's elevating that team so much. Where Stafford, the stats are better than both of those guys, and
Stafford's been awesome. To be clear, he's been phenomenal.
But you can't convince me that that's the same. It's not 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Like he has Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams with the best head coach in football, and not to mention Kyron Williams is pretty darn good, and the O-line's pretty darn good, and all that stuff. I think the infrastructure around Matthew Stafford is a lot different than what Drake and Josh.
Yeah,
Drake and Josh. Has anybody put that together? That Drake May and Josh Allen are going to be a rivalry, and
I haven't
Drake
heard
and
it.
Josh. I need a chop up this week of a preview of the Drake and Josh theme song to highlights of Drake May and Josh Allen. It's gonna take some time. That's my singing of that. That might be a little young for Shane, that show, Drake and Josh. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's not something I've really watched much, but I'm aware of it.
I think you would have probably. I think you're a few, without revealing our ages here on the show. I was probably like 10 to 13 in that heyday of that show.
We're about the same age.
Oh, I thought you were a little older than me.
I think we're about the same age.
Okay. All right. I didn't know that.
I mean, my age isn't classified, but we can take that conversation off air if yours is. So
no, I'm 29. I'm 29.
Oh, okay. No, I'm old. I'm 35 then.
That's what I thought.
I was thinking you were like early 30s.
We had about a 5-year gap from,
okay.
I think we had this conversation about some other pop culture thing that came up in the past, I think.
Okay. Well, I feel older now, so.
But Drake and Josh,
all right, let's get into the afternoon slate. Denver at Las Vegas. Denver wins 24-17. So close game. But I think the real story of this game is how they just took the air out of the game. I was going to say out of the football, but you can't say that post Tom Brady and Deflategate. So took the air out of the game. So Denver has an opening scoring drive that took 8 minutes and 54 seconds off the clock. The Raiders answer with a 6-minute scoring drive of their own, and the first quarter was over. That's it. 2 possessions, 1 for each team in the whole first quarter. In the second half, Denver had a 9-minute scoring drive and a 10-minute scoring drive. So they win the time of possession battle 39 minutes to 21. Outpossessing the opposing team by 18 minutes is insane in a 60-minute game. RJ Harvey had 17 carries for 75 yards and a touchdown as a runner. He had 25 receiving yards. Bo Nix was 31 of 38 for 212 yards as a passer. He had 15 rushing yards and a touchdown. So solid Nix game, despite the fact, they don't light up the scoreboard, but they really shortened this game. Geno Smith left the game with a shoulder injury, and as Reddit Clip says Kenny Pickett looked far better than Geno Smith, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. And so it looks like, Denver just keeps piling up wins, and I don't know, I guess it depends on, I don't know if you call this an impressive win or not, but I was impressed by their ability to just grind large chunks of the clock off on some of these drives.
I'm going to say it. I'm done with Denver. I'm out. I'm done with they beat teams like this 24-17. I will say they cashed a teaser for me, so thank you to Denver. But I think Vegas is saying everything I need to say about Denver. Do you know? I guess I kind of gave it away there, but the Packers are playing at Denver this week. Shane, whose line is it anyway? What do you think the spread is?
Packers at Denver.
Yeah,
Denver -1.5.
Packers by 3.
Okay.
I think that says everything about what Vegas thinks about the Denver
think the Packers
Broncos.
should be favored. I
Figured they
wouldn't be.
I actually like it. I like laying the 3. I think it's going to be a kind of a statement game for Green Bay. And I think after 10 straight wins, Denver's, and they do have some leeway, obviously a ton of leeway in the division. And then, even to lose the 1 seed, I think they could probably lose one game depending on if New England loses to Buffalo. So I think that Vegas is seeing that. I can't lie. Seeing that, I feel like a couple weeks in a row now, I feel like I've given Denver more credit than I've wanted to, or I've been like, you kind of have to. They're 11-2. They might end up being the 1 seed. And in conversations with friends about like who can win the AFC, I feel like I've been like, oh yeah, and there's Denver, but like I don't actually mean it in my heart. When I saw Vegas back me up on that and say that the Packers are a 3-point favorite in Denver this week, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done pretending. The Broncos aren't doing anything in the playoffs.
All right. I guess we'll see. Let's keep rolling here.
One real quick, someone on the comments, the big story was the loss clinching walk-off successful field goal to mess with the spread and over. Pete Carroll, along with Hunter Yurachek and the College Football Playoff Committee, should be investigated. Investigate Pete Carroll for kicking that field goal. That was insane.
Hey, you might as well give your kicker some reps.
That was I can't believe he took a field goal. I didn't have money on that, so I had the Broncos just to win the game, so I didn't care. But it was so funny. The meltdowns I saw people have, so funny.
Yeah. Okay, Chicago at Green Bay. Green Bay wins 28-21. The Bears scored a touchdown on a 17-play drive to start the fourth quarter that tied the game at 21. The Packers answered with a touchdown to retake the lead with 3.5 minutes left. And then the Bears drive to the red zone. They've got a 3rd and 1 at the 14-yard line, and they get stuffed on a run. And then on 4th and 1, Caleb Williams was intercepted in the end zone on a fantastic play by Kason Nixon. Did you see the back view of that play, Mark, by chance? Yeah, so it's a play-action pass. Nixon is responsible for a different guy, and he realizes that the tight end that's running the corner route, the linebacker or safety, whoever it was that's supposed to cover him, bit on the play fake, and he totally abandons his responsibility and sprints across the field under that and gets the interception to seal the game. I mean, Cole Kmet would have been wide open. If Caleb Williams sees it a little quicker, makes a little better throw, it's still a touchdown, but fantastic play by Nixon to save the game there for the Packers. And Jordan Love goes 17-25 for 234 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. He threw an interception that happened early, but the Packers scored touchdowns on 4 of their final 6 drives to win this game. Packers looking good, Mark.
Yeah, they look like they're right back in the mix as one of the top teams in the NFC. I'm holding on to my tickets on them to win the NFC and to win the Super Bowl that I placed right when the trade drive. And by the way, for any gamblers out there, especially for futures, because the game-to-game markets get, I think, let's say there's like an injury news out there where you get a tweet from Rappaport or Schefter. FanDuel and DraftKings are really quick. Or, I mean, every book, I shouldn't have singled out too. No free ads. But every single sports book is really quick to take those books or take those games off the site. They're not as quick to adjust futures markets sometimes. And what happened to me when the Micah Parsons trade got broken this offseason, I real quick ran to the futures market, got in a bet on the Packers. I forget what the numbers are. I tweeted it out and I'll quote tweet it, but to win the NFC and to win the Super Bowl. And they dropped in half, I think both within the next hour. So I got that one in. So if the Eagles are out early in the playoffs or whatever happens, I am officially a cheesehead when it gets to the playoffs. And I'm starting to feel pretty good about being a cheesehead if we're in the playoffs, because when Jordan Love looks like that looks like the guy that I feel like for the last 2 years I've tried to defend as like a top 6, 7, 8 quarterback on our quarterback rankings in the offseason, because the good is so good. The highs are so high. Toyotathon Jordan Love is a special talent, as Brett Eclipse said in the comments.
All right, let's keep rolling. Last game of the afternoon slate, the Rams just demolished the Cardinals 45-17. So not a close loss for the Cardinals this time. They just get dismantled. Rams put up 445 yards in the first 3 quarters. They scored a touchdown on 4 consecutive drives at one point. Puka Nacua had 7 catches for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. Michael Wilson for the Cardinals was the lone bright spot, 11 catches for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns. Matthew Stafford threw 3 touchdowns in this game, which makes it his 7th consecutive multi-touchdown game, which is the longest such streak in the NFL this season, as the Rams just cruise by the Cardinals.
Cardinals are horrible. I mean, this is a joke. I can't believe their win total was 8.5 this year. That was an over. That's the only over-under I placed this year. I placed 3 futures. It was the 2 Packers futures I just said, and the Cardinals under 8.5 wins. I am not a proponent of like firing head coaches in season. I don't really know. We've talked about this before. I don't really, in certain situations, I get it. If you want to get a look at a certain guy as the head coach, sure. But in most situations, I don't really know what it accomplishes. And it just feels like a PR stunt to me. In this situation, what is it accomplishing to not fire Jonathan Gannon? Like this is week in and week out, just incompetent, awful football. I guess they played a couple. You know what? I'm being a little too harsh. 2 of their last 3 games were close. But if you look at it, 3 of their last 5 games have been blowouts where they haven't been close in the first quarter. So maybe I'm just remembering those 3. But the Cardinals, I'm done with.
Yeah, I've been done with them for a long time.
Yeah.
All right, let's go Sunday Night Football. Last game of the week here. Houston at Kansas City. Houston wins 20-10. This was 10-10 in the fourth quarter. And the Chiefs went for it on a 4th and 1 from their own 31-yard line. Now, both analytics, fourth down decision maker calculators I look at, both had this as a go situation, and I just think that's insane. The Texans offense had gained 34 total yards on their last 7 possessions combined. And you go for it at your own 31. Rashee Rice drops the pass, you hand the ball over to an offense that can't do anything, and then they score a touchdown that proves decisive. I'm a pretty big analytics guy. I'm really surprised that's what the analytics say there, but I think there has to be some accounting for how the game is going. And when the opposing offense absolutely cannot move the football, that's just a crazy decision in my mind. Mahomes was rough in this game statistically, 14 of 33 for 160 yards and 3 interceptions. I mean, one of the interceptions, Juju drifts upfield on a slant route and it gets undercut. One of them was a really bad deep throw, and then another one hits Travis Kelce in the hands and he essentially just handed it to the defender to end the game. The Chiefs have not missed the playoffs in the Patrick Mahomes era, but with their 4th loss in the last 5 games, they're now down to a 15% chance to make the playoffs. Meanwhile, the Texans, after starting 0-3, are now 8-5, and they have an 87% playoff probability.
I mean, it's going to be, I think that race is fully Texans-Jags down the stretch here. Do they play again? Houston and Jacksonville. I just read the Jags schedule. I can't remember being slow here. No, they don't. So they split the game, so it'll come down to division record between them. So the Jags are a game ahead right now. So they have a game in hand on the Texans, and we just talked about the Jags the Jags having a really easy schedule. I think that hey, I gave the NFC playoffs. Here's the AFC playoffs on the last game of the show. The 1 seed is going to be the Broncos or the Patriots. The 2 seed is going to be the Broncos or the Patriots. They're going to be playing the 7 seed Chargers. The 3 seed Jags are probably going to be playing the 6 seed Texans. And then the 4 seed Steelers are going to be playing the 5 seed Bills.
All right. There you have it. That's your final thoughts for the day?
Yeah, that can be. My final thoughts is investigate Hunter Yurachek and the College Football Committee. Notre Dame was plus 1,100 at 11:55 a.m. to miss the playoff. I would love to know if anybody in the Arkansas organization, or if the Arkansas Athletic Director, Hunter Yurachek, who's also the College Football Playoff Chair of the committee, who lost to Notre Dame 56-13, and that same AD fired the head coach minutes after the game because he was so disappointed. I'm sure he had no hard feelings about losing 56-13 to Notre Dame. But yeah. I think that's my final thought. Investigate Hunter Yurachek.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you for joining us for episode 215 of Chalk Talk. If you enjoy what you heard on the show, be sure you smash that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. Drop us a 5-star rating wherever you stream your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at ShaneHalfNFL. He is at Mark Henry Jr., and we will catch you guys next time.